Oh, they may be playing football, and the crowd is yelling, kill the referee. But no matter what the score, when the clock strikes 4, everything stops for tea.
To Spill the Tea, the show for British expats and everyone that loves all things British. My name's Ian.
And my name is Sam. Today's guest is immigration attorney Darren Heyman. So we're going to answer lots of your questions. Make sure you drop them in the comments below. But before that, we're going to have a chit-chat, me and Ian, aren't we, Ian?
We do. Good morning. How are you?
I just did this before we came on air. I went...
You did.
That's my warm-up.
Your red leather, yellow leather.
Yeah, yeah. I can't even do that today.
Innit?
I could just do that's as much as I'm managing.
So here we are.
We are.
This is the... do I look any different? Do I look less European? You know, we don't do Brexit. Brexit is done. It's moved on.
The little piece of
it's happened.
Piece of history has happened.
It's our first show.
We've witnessed it. Yeah. Do we have to change passports now?
No. Well,
I did like the blue one. I did like the blue one though. I have to say, I don't like burgundy. I never did.
Well,
I never liked that colour.
That was the best reason for it then.
So important to me.
But it's a bit like, I've noticed now since the news cycle has kind of moved on, you find that it's a bit like after the last episode of Friends or Seinfeld. It was all this kind of everything. It was all the build up.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh,
it's nothing.
What's next?
What's next?
So yeah, that's kind of where we're at, really.
Yeah.
But,
so we watched something historic go down.
We did. We sort of marked the moment on the page, and we were very careful with what we said because we didn't want to incite a conversation. And this is actually the most we've talked about it ever.
Riot.
Yeah, I think actually even in our description it says we talk about everything except Brexit. So we're kind of breaking our own rules now, but it's sort of done. So
yeah, that's it. That's a little piece of history that we all got to witness.
It is, and we had to mention it because, well, you know, is what it is.
It is what it is, you know.
So headlines.
Go on.
I think we're calling it headlines now. This is kind of becoming a thing.
What have you got?
What have I got? Well, what have I got? I'll tell you what I'm going to start with, actually. PG Tips.
Okay.
PG Tips is owned by Unilever, and they are considering selling the brand.
To who? That's always the issue.
Offloading it. We don't know to who yet. But they are considering selling it because sales are down. And the way they describe it is saying that they are targeting brands with purpose and saying that brands that do not have a clear social function should be eliminated from the Unilever roster. Excuse me.
Tea is a cure-all for everything. It has a purpose.
I mean, the whole point of our show is based around tea.
Cup of tea.
And the whole of our British culture is based around, it'll be fine, have a cup of tea.
Yes. You know, you celebrate with a cup of tea, you commiserate with a cup of tea, you relax with a cup of tea.
Exactly. So, I mean, you know, sales are down a bit, and it's herbal because there's an H in it.
There is a H in herbal and herbs.
Herbal teas are more popular now or are becoming more popular. Yeah. But you say that, and the thing is, the tea industry. I know that all of it. I'm not looking down. The tea industry is at £667 million a year, compared to £52 million for cold infusions and herbal teas. Herbal teas.
Do you know what I find about herbal teas, Ian?
What?
Is that I find
I'm having some real tea here.
I do drink a lot of herbal teas. But I find that the flavours aren't strong enough.
No, I agree.
Yeah, they're a bit weak.
And when you add lots of sugar to it, like I'd like to.
Yeah, I think they need more flavour.
Although I have to say, I did notice this morning that even though we're having this love fest for PG Tips, that's Tetley's in there.
It is. I see the little tag.
I don't know if you can see it in the wine.
See the tag.
Probably can't. But there's actually a... So
while we're at it, tell us your favourite tea. Why not?
We're part of the problem, not the solution.
Tell us what you think about them getting rid of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, somebody's going to buy it, but and PG Tips. All right, because I know you like to do this. You like to dig into the weeds of everything.
I do.
Established 1930 by the Manchester-based firm. Do you remember who it was owned by before Unilever? Anyone?
No.
Brook Bond.
Oh gosh, you've just brought back a name,
isn't it? Right. So now it was originally named Pre-Gesti.
Is that what the PG
Right,
standard for?
implying that it had a digestive properties.
Properties.
Grocers and salesmen shortened it to PG. The tips was added in the 1950s for no apparent reason that is explained here.
Not like the tips of the leaves or anything like that.
Yeah, probably.
But you
Makes
know what?
sense.
It's like we've actually got some digestives right now. There was a thing then back then with tea and I think biscuits about helping the digestion.
It was all about digestives.
I think it's about slowing down. When you slow down, your digestion's better.
Well, it does.
Yes.
Let's face it. I see where they're coming from.
I think this is how I feel about a lot of brands that want to sell. Because they've been around 100 years or so, I think we have quite an attachment to them. And I think we also then want to know who's going to buy it. Because are you going to uphold this tradition?
Exactly.
And that's where I have a problem. If they sold, because Galaxy Chocolate and Thornton's Chocolate, from Sheffield, by the way, Ian, just thought I'd let you know that.
Yes.
If that was to be sold to, say, Hershey's, I'd kill myself.
You would.
It would ruin my life, yeah.
Then I have to find a whole new colour host.
You would. That's how I feel about when someone else buys the company. Are they going to uphold the tradition, the quality, what it means to people because they've been around for so long?
I know. So that's that. That's pretty much the whole PG Tips thing. So hopefully that'll be fine. So I don't want to rename the show. Spill the
herbal tea.
Spill the herb. That's a whole other topic.
It's a whole other topic. Do we have any comments about the tea? Let's have a look.
I don't know.
I have never liked tea, said Mike Robson. But there's nothing more British. That's right.
Thank you. So at least you're keeping that going. Morning, Eve.
Morning.
You'll be on soon.
Yes, you will.
So we've got a BFF running today.
Yes, we do.
And literally running. Actually, she's going to be exercising. So stand by for that one. In other news, actually similar type of thing. Another company that's not doing so well, Aston Martin.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm a car guy, so
I know you are. You like your little cars.
So they went public and they raised something like £1 billion. £1 billion. I mean, they did well, maybe not that much. Well, maybe it was that much, but they raised a lot and they spent it all. And now they're looking for another like $500 million bailout. So there's been a Formula One boss billionaire who's now bailing out Aston Martin, which is a shame because
it sounds like they need to change who's running the thing.
They do. They've just come out with an SUV as well. So hopefully they can do what Jaguar did. Well, although Jaguar's not really British now, only by name, but still, they've done really quite well with their.
It's Jaguar, by the way, isn't it, Ian?
Jaguar.
Yeah.
Did I say that?
No, some people say Jaguar.
Did I say that?
It's not. No, I'm just saying. It's not Jaguar.
3 syllables.
We hear that all the time. Jaguar. No. Jaguar.
Yeah.
No.
No. But yeah, so hopefully they can, because I mean it's a classic brand.
It is a classic brand. You need the right person to run it. If you've raised that money, then you've just spent it and you're still in trouble.
They must have had some good parties. Well, actually, it's probably this SUV they've come out with, which looks very nice.
Are you going to buy one? What's the fanciest car that you've ever had, or you still have?
Fanciest car? I have a 1994 Acura NSX, Honda NSX.
Is that fancy?
It's a classic. It's a classic, and I still have it. It sits in my garage, and I look at it a lot.
We used to have not a British car, but a 1966 Chevy Impala.
I remember you had that.
Yeah.
That was like
we sold it, and you know where it is? The guy that bought it, I want to say it's now in Poland.
Oh wow!
Shipped it out to Poland.
It kind of looked like a car from Men in Black.
It did. It was a boat,
and it was black.
It was black, and it was 18 feet long, and it barely fit in the garage.
Wow.
Barely. No seat belts, and the tires were like balloons. Just like, whoa. But if you had to stop, it was all like,
Nice.
It's such a heavy car. But it was great running around in that in winter because there was no AC in it either.
I have one of those too. I have a 1976 Fiat Spider, little convertible thing, and everyone's like, "Where's the air conditioning?" It's like
it's called winter.
It's called
take the lid off.
Take the lid off, exactly. Which around Las Vegas in the summer is not much fun.
No, I would never recommend that,
especially at traffic lights. It's like
burning your face off.
But yeah. So of course, Aston Martin, then James Bond.
Yes,
the car of James Bond. Amazing segue link onto my next. Unless have you got? I've got them all today.
I've just got stuff I've been up to.
Well, I'll do the link.
Do
the
the
Aston
link.
Martin James
Go
Bond
on,
one,
then.
right? So next on the agenda, who's going to be the next James Bond?
Oh, right. So it does not need to be a woman. I'm sorry.
Well, no,
They're very specific. We talked about that before. It's very specific what James Bond was to look like.
Right.
But who would you like?
Well, there's as far as I can tell, there's three potentials.
Yeah.
So, and this week there was a bit of a clue because James Norton. I was about to say Graham Norton, but he would be a really weird James Bond. Wouldn't he just?
His suits would be amazing.
James Norton, and we've got a picture of James Norton here. Which one is that? The one that's got the two faces with Daniel Craig. There you go. See, there we got him.
Oh, he's good looking, isn't he?
So that's James Norton. But see,
that chiseled.
Look at Daniel Craig. He's going to be very hard to replace, I think, because he's done such a good job.
I'll take the new one.
No, but he looks a bit like. To me, he's got somewhere between Hugh Grant and Colin Firth.
Hey, the girls don't mind that, honestly.
I
think men and women could have a very different view.
Fappy. He seems a bit
fappy.
A bit too bit too Oxford. Like just come in.
Well, Oxford. I think they should have Russell Brand.
Well, that could be a thing.
Let's really go with something different.
The other one that's been mentioned, and I can't remember his name now.
Just show a picture and we'll try and figure it out.
And then we'll
Ian
figure it out.
and I just have the worst memory.
This guy.
Oh, what's
his name? No, he's Scottish.
Someone tell us who that man is.
But he's done a few things recently, but he's Scottish. I think he actually would be quite good. I think he's got the similar edge that Daniel Craig has.
I like the dark-haired James Bond as well.
Yeah, but yeah, I do. And then of course there's Idris Elba, which they keep talking about.
No, I don't know if this was a true statement or not by him, but he said he didn't want to be pigeonholed as James Bond because I think you do get stuck. It's not as a terrible thing, but for your career, I don't know if it was a true statement by him, but
I get it. I mean, and I must admit that movie that Daniel Craig was in recently, it did seem a little. He had a different accent.
What?
He's done another movie, a non-Bond.
Is it hard to think of him as something different?
Well, I haven't seen the movie. I've only seen clips, but seeing clips and hearing him being someone else does seem a little odd.
Weird.
Little bit odd.
Yeah, because I've never seen him in anything else.
Right.
So yeah.
So we'll see. But
I'm thinking Russell Brand. I'm thinking let's have Ozzy Osbourne. Let's have Ozzy Osbourne.
Let's do that then.
Talking of Ozzy Osbourne, here's my segue.
That was a terrible segue.
Let's have
Ozzy Osbourne as James Bond. Speaking of
we were sat near Kelly Osbourne the other day because we went to see RuPaul's Drag Race show that opened in Vegas.
Oh, they did some rehearsals in here.
And it was fabulous.
It was?
It was fabulous. It's as if you are part of the show itself.
Oh, nice.
So it's like they're running an actual competition during the show.
Okay.
Asia, the host, hilariously funny. Costumes, as you can imagine, unreal. Wigs, amazing. And basically it's a competition that the audience participates in.
Oh, nice.
And they've got a set of male dancers called the pit crew. I think the pit crew.
Okay.
And it was such a good show. I think it's a kind of show you would go to that if you're going with a big group of friends, you'll have the best time. And we had.
I've never actually watched the TV show, so.
But it's interactive.
It's interactive.
It's interactive, and they have them all over the world. They've got it in Britain already. In fact, their first episode, they had to be the queen. They had to be the queen, and they came out with some really amazing costumes. One was an actual coin. He was in the coin. His head was the queen's head. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
But the show is so funny, and it's so exciting. The costumes are ridiculous. The set's great. Andy did the set. Really fun, colourful. Music I really loved. I mean, really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Probably one thing I didn't particularly like, and it was a bit Doris Day for me. It was a bit...
Of course it was.
A song in the mirror. It was so weird, and it was really early on in the show, and I go, this is out of context. This is bizarre. I would have just kicked that out of the show entirely. Oh. But other than that, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. But Kelly was next to us. She is a beautiful girl, I have to tell you. And she's a tiny girl. She's like a little bird. And she just looked fab with her, lilac hair. And she was with, is it AJ who does the thing from Vegas, the entertainment show from Vegas in the afternoons? Maybe. Good-looking guy.
No idea.
So, and then, of course, RuPaul was there. And all black, like a cowboy, black cowboy hat, looked amazing. Absolutely amazing. But it was such a good night.
And that's not the only show you've seen this week.
No, I went to see Mystère last night, which I haven't seen in about 20 years.
Which is the original Cirque du Soleil show that was here in Las Vegas.
The original. And they've changed a lot in the show.
Yeah.
Tons of it, which is good. You have to keep it fresh.
And one of the characters in that show actually is a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
And their whole family are great friends. And Cirque du Soleil has also been going 30 plus years, 35, I don't even know now. But he's been with them since the early days. And he's that plays the clown character in Mystère. Yeah. And he's 86 years old.
And he's funny.
And he's still performing,
That's
up to 10 shows a week on the Las Vegas Strip at 86. And he's British. See, we've got staying power.
We do have staying power.
I'll try and get him in.
I mean, there's loads of Brits as well in the show.
There are.
You know, gymnasts.
We do export entertainment pretty well.
Yeah, we're good at that. And lots of Australians. But the show was fun. Really, really fun. I hadn't seen it in such a long time.
Yeah.
And I do you know what I like about the shows? They're very open to your own interpretation. Whatever you get out of the show is what you get out of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, really like that. But it was fun. So it was a late night, hence more dry shampoo.
Oh, that was last night?
Hence more dry shampoo today.
Nice. That was last night you saw the show?
Yeah,
last
night, yeah.
All right.
So I'm going for this record, how many days I can go without washing my hair and how much dry shampoo can be in my hair these days. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Oh, I'm telling you now, the girls will tell you on here, they do the same. They do exactly the same. Just sometimes you go a little too overboard and then you look like an antique, like you're wearing a powdered wig.
Nice.
If it goes too far.
Very cool.
But I think I've done all right today, considering it was such a late night last night. But yeah, it was lovely. I've been doing a lot of watching stuff on TV as well. Super Bowl halftime show. Did you like J-Lo and you didn't see it?
No, I watched it.
Did you like it?
I thought it was blah.
It was blah.
I mean, it wasn't horrible. I mean, there have been shows that have been horrible.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't, but it didn't, I mean, J-Lo's
I feel like they didn't do enough together.
The choreography was a bit weird. I mean, speaking from a production perspective.
Well, J-Lo, all I said, she always likes to get that pimp stick out.
I mean, she's 50, so she was rocking it. I'll give her that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying anything was bad about it.
No.
It just didn't.
I think we watched Gaga's from last year. And I mean, it was phenomenal. That was really good. And then I think even Madonna's was really good when she did hers.
Yeah.
And then Beyonce. But yeah, I still enjoy it. I like the costumes. I think they're fantastic.
Yeah.
And in case anyone doesn't know this, they look like they're wearing little tiny costumes. Like, how is it not slipping around? It's one piece. Everything is one piece. All sewn together. You pull it on and that's it. That's how that works.
Just like this jeans and shirt.
Just like they're attached together. Just pull it on in one piece.
Pull it on, yeah.
But no, I enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoy anything that's entertainment based anyway. But yeah, I watched that. And then I watched Taylor Swift's documentary, which now I want to be Taylor Swift's best friend. Because
she's into animals, that's why.
Yeah, her cats. Yeah, big time. But quite a nice insight. Well, not nice for us. Some of the things she had to deal with, And I think fame. People think if you've got money and fame that you're happy, and I think it's a real insight into that and some of the obstacles that she had to overcome. It's very, very good. And then I caught a little bit of the BAFTAs. Did you watch the BAFTAs?
Yeah, I did actually.
What did you think about them taking jabs at the royal family when Will and Kate were sat in the front row? Did you catch that?
I did.
I thought it was in poor taste.
Yeah, but
because they're going through a lot.
They are.
The family's going through a lot.
Everybody's. It kind of is what it is. I mean, after you got Ricky Gervais doing the Golden Globes, where there's no holds barred. This was actually very lightweight. So
you know what feels weird? They
can take it. They can. I mean,
I know the people were laughing.
They're fine.
Although Will had a funny look.
It doesn't matter. What's he going to do?
Because they did.
He's the president of the BAFTAs. He's not going to be like, that's it.
There were a couple of digs. It was like, come on, maybe one.
Yeah.
But then it's like, come on, people.
Well, but they were by different people.
Yeah, they were.
And they'd already pre-planned what they were going to say and think, I'm going to be the only one who makes a comment. And of course they weren't.
No, they weren't. But I didn't think it was, I don't know. I personally didn't like that. Because I look at them as a family that's going through hell.
Yeah.
But here's another interesting thing I watched, and I know we need to get onto our BFF in a second. Have you watched The Windsors on Netflix, the comedy?
No.
It is absolutely hilarious. It's one of the shows that you actually do laugh out loud.
Right.
And it's just a real parody of the royal family. But here's what's really weird. It was filmed 2016, maybe ending in 17.
Right.
But a lot of it was like art imitating life, because there's an episode where Harry and Meghan, and Harry goes, I'm going to have to abdicate and I'm going to have to step down and move to America, I think it was, or France or something like that, because she doesn't want to be here. It was the weirdest
that really
thing.
was art imitating life.
It was. And then they did a whole thing with Prince Andrew, where they said, it was a song, and he hangs out with pedophiles. This was in 2016-17. It was the weirdest thing to watch. It was like, whoa.
It's like The Simpsons predicting.
Like this, yeah, they predict so many things. It's
everything.
Crazy. Yeah. But it's a very, very funny, well done comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've literally laughed out loud at that show. So, yeah,
Cool.
I spent a lot of time in front of a stage and TV this week. And
good.
I think that's my social life.
That's my. I had a couple.
Documented.
We'll save them. We'll save them for. I've got the rest for next week. There'll be a week old news, but that's fine.
There's always more news anyway. It's like laundry; it never goes away.
Yeah.
Your mum was saying at one point she had a favourite car. Oh, I can't see the comments now.
I can't. All I can see is I can see Tracy. Hi to you.
My Tracy,
Sandy, good morning.
Sandy, Sue.
And Sue, good morning. Good morning.
By the way, there's a little magic.
On here.
There's a magic button on the bottom of our post. It says share on it.
Yes.
It's very magical.
We love it when you share.
Anyone that you feel needs to see this show.
Share and like. And we are actually reaching out to some new groups today as well in various parts around the world that we notice. If you are seeing this for the first time, dive on over to Spill the Tea page and Spill the Tea Live, actually, and like us and follow us, and then you'll be able to see the show every week pop up on your feed.
Do you know what would be fabulous? If you could share it in some of your groups, because sometimes we get kicked out.
Well, and here's the thing. We're not trying to promote anything. Week. We're not
selling a ticket. We're not selling a T-shirt.
We're here for the whole reason that everybody is on those expats in type groups.
Yes.
So we're talking about different things that are relative to us being
to
British.
Those groups.
Yeah. Whether you're watching from the UK, which is, we have people who watch from the UK as well.
Yeah.
Or if you're watching from somewhere else around the world. I mean, this is a community thing. So, we love all the groups that carry our show. And if you're on the fence and you're an admin of those pages, we're just here to have fun.
Yes.
We want to be able to connect with your viewers and give you something else to be able to share with your members.
Well, that's true. I mean, it's more content that they didn't have to create. We create it for them. Just share it and put it in your group.
And we'll give you a shout out. You want us to promote your group, your page, you let us know. That we don't have any kind of holdbacks here. We're about connecting with everybody that's decided not to live in the UK or is thinking about not living in the UK.
Yes.
Post whatever. And so this is for you guys. So
I don't think Ian's scared that I'm actually going to call out the ones that aren't nice to us, but
no. Everyone just has their opinions, and we respect that. I would never do that. Coexist.
He's very. What's the word?
I'm getting to our comments because
your mum said she had a Honda.
I did it. I didn't turn my volume down.
I see. It's usually me messing up on that. Your mum had a Honda something X, and she said every time she looked at it, it made her smile. Do you remember your mum's car?
And she's got it totally wrong. It was neither a Honda or an RSX. It was actually a Mazda RX-7.
Oh, is that what?
But close enough, Mum. Close enough.
That's hilarious.
So that's good. So who else has got? Patrick's on. Morning. Nadine. Interesting. It is, isn't it, Nadine? Welcome to the show.
Welcome to Spill the Tea.
If you haven't seen us before, like I say, press the follow. Let's get those numbers up there.
That's right.
And share. So, yes, anyway, I think it's time to get our fitness on for a moment.
Yes, well, Eve's going to. We're going to enjoy watching
We're going to just sit here and drink more tea and have a digestive.
That we are, yes.
Go ahead. You can tee this one up.
Oh, I'm not sure what it is, but this is our BFF segment, Beauty, Fitness and Fashion with Eve Dawes. Enjoy this little segment.
The option, it's up to you. You can either do 60 seconds of work and 30 seconds of rest, or you can do 30 seconds of work and 10 seconds of rest, depending how much time you have. I am doing another beach body workout for you today. You don't have to be on the beach, you can do it anywhere, but you don't need any equipment. You can do it any place, anytime, and let's go. Let's start with step backs. You're going to go all the way back. Try not to let the knee go past the ankles and touch the ground each time, and then drive through the hips, push the booty forward for some booty lifting. Next up, let's get the heart rate going. We are going on to mountain climbers. And no, you don't have to do this on the beach. You can do this anywhere. So put your tea down and come and join me. Back to the legs. We're going to do some forward lunges, making sure that front knee doesn't go past the front toes, and then pushing through that front heel all the way back to standing. Time to get the heart rate back up. Jumping jacks, you know how to do these. Let's go. It needs no explanation. Next up, diamond press ups. It wouldn't be a workout without some good old push ups. So on your knees or on your toes to make it even harder. Hands are in a diamond shape, and you're going to drive and push up to work the triceps and chest. I told you get ready to sweat. Back to some wide stance jumps. Hands, however, is going to get you some height and make it easier for you. Back to the arms with some good old tricep dips. You can do it on your bottom stair, your sofa, a stable chair, wherever you have available, or even just on the floor. Hands are nice and close to the hips. Lastly, abs, nice V-sit. If this is too hard using the arms, you can always put them under your lower back and use that for support. And we are done.
And there it is. I feel so much fitter now.
Yeah.
All we've done during that is actually just pour tea and pass out biscuits. But you know,
that's a workout in itself.
True.
You know.
So that was Eve. Thanks, Eve. Appreciate that. So our guest today is actually one of the reasons I think when we first started doing the show, we thought about another item that'd be really interesting for our viewers. That we have some fun guests, and this is going to be a fun one, but it's also going to be informative and interesting. So today we have an immigration special, and we have Darren Heyman, who is an immigration lawyer. Very welcome to you, Darren.
So glad you came on the show, because we've been talking about it for ages. We've got to find someone.
Yeah. Well, and again, when we first started out doing the show, or we were planning the show, we were thinking, well, what sort of things could we do?
Yeah.
And we were thinking, let's have this an immigration section and blah blah. So it's taken 21 shows to get you here.
Where have you been? Once you're in, we don't. You're in.
Yeah,
you're
in for life.
It is
the mob.
It is a bit of a club, actually. You become sort of part of the family. So. Welcome to the family.
Lovely to be here.
Well,
Thank you so much.
A lot of these groups that we've talked about, there are so many questions. I don't know if you're in those British groups, but oh my gosh, the questions, a lot of them are about where they can find British food and where, immigration questions. But here's the thing, and I know people want to be helpful, and everybody's experience is different, and your experience is different depending on when you did your immigration paperwork. For me, I'm sure it was very different from when I did mine, which was 25 years ago. I mean, it's only a couple of years ago that I actually did my citizenship, so I was a green card holder for all that time. But I do see some bad information. I know people are trying to be helpful, but I think to myself, no, don't be messing around with that stuff. You've got to, because they change, laws change, visa requirements change. It's true. So that's why I'm really glad that we're doing this show. So we asked quite a few people for questions and stuff.
We did.
But let's find out.
Yeah, I want to know more
like?
about.
Let's find out what you
like.
What are you like?
I'm neither fun nor informative. Right?
Great. Well, that was the show. Thanks for tuning in.
You like a cup of tea?
No, it's first of all, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Lovely to be here.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, you're right. There's a lot of misinformation out there. Well intended, but certainly misinformation.
But also, before we get to that, though, we want to know about you.
About me.
About you. Now, from what I understand, you are the definitive expat because you've lived and travelled and been everywhere. Now, although you were actually born in the United States, we don't hold that against you. You studied in the UK.
Correct.
So tell us that little path of where you've bounced to and how you've ended up being here on the couch today.
Oh, certainly. Well, when I was 5 years old, I moved to London, where I stayed through Common Entrance, GCSEs, then went on to Switzerland for A-levels, and then came back to America for university in these undergraduate and then law school. Then from here, moved down to Curacao in the Caribbean.
Whoa.
And then from Curacao, I moved to Ireland, Republic of. And then from Ireland, moved back to England, where I went and got my master's degree. And then from England, moved to Ukraine. And then from Ukraine to Las Vegas about 9 years ago.
Wow.
That is definitely
You've lived
a bit of a
it.
trip.
It's been quite a ride.
You've lived the process, haven't you?
So I know exactly what it's like to be an immigrant.
Yeah.
Especially in trying to get legal in certain countries where they make it close to impossible to get legal.
Right.
Because they would much rather you paying them under the table, if you will, than actually pay the government.
Right.
So here the government likes its money.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yes, they do. And
There it is,
when I was going
exactly.
through, I say, our green card stuff when we got married, they were forever sending me a form that would say, update your address, which never changed, but it was always $200 to file that form.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on, you're
Another
killing
200.
me. Please
Yeah,
don't send me another form, But and I was paranoid back then because let's think about it. Did we all have computers 25 years ago and cell phones? No, we didn't.
No.
So everything was done on paper. And I remember them giving me that paper saying, your interview. And it literally was 2 years ahead and just being totally paranoid that I'd missed it.
I think we all get like that, don't we? I mean, it's one of those topics that
You don't want to mess up.
you don't want to mess up, and you don't want to make a false move, and it's very stressful.
That's going to be some of our questions.
I'm sure.
Because people do make mistakes. I mean, I almost made a mistake. I found a piece of information that stopped me from making a mistake,
that's good.
that would have stopped my whole green card process entirely, and I would not have been able to come back from England. But by chance, I found something that said, you need advance parole. That was back then. And you need to apply for this. My twin sister was having a baby, so I wanted to go back. And I just by chance found it.
Right.
Otherwise, it would have been null and void.
So really, I think there's a few categories that it really falls under. Let's face it. You're either living in the UK and wanting to move out of the country, and so that you need information for that. And in this particular case, to the US, you've either got here already and you already have a visa and you want to translate that into a green card, perhaps. You maybe have a green card and want to translate that into citizenship. Or you're a citizen and you're thinking about trying to get your family members over.
Yeah,
Based upon, I mean,
that's a
there's
big
all those categories, and of course many other things in between.
Oh.
don't forget giving up your citizenship too.
Oh, you see, I didn't like the
seen that
idea of that,
recently.
you see. And I was so glad that I got to be dual citizen because I never would have given mine up.
I'm referring more people who obtain their American citizenship and then later decide they no longer want to be Americans.
Is that just a process though, or do you just
It's a
abandon
process.
it?
No, you can't just abandon it. You have to prove that it's not for tax reasons.
Oh, it's
because
complicated,
It is
isn't it?
complicated. That's why I have a job, thank God.
Well, there you go.
Probably get
And
you a
now-
lot
and-
more clients
And
today.
it is the Heyman Law Group.
It is Heyman Law Group, yes.
And you've got a great website. It's greencardadvice.com, which
Thank
The
you.
is
best domain name
I
ever.
think so. It's great.
Brilliant.
But even though you're based here in Las Vegas, in fact, your office, we put something out on the page. It's like we were looking for an immigration lawyer. Your office is like a mile and a half down the road.
Yeah, it is. It's just
Exactly,
down the
right around the
street,
corner.
isn't it?
Ironically, so you've got no excuse not to come and see us on other occasions.
Whenever I'm invited, if ever again.
Perfect.
What should
But-
we start with?
Well, and I was just going to say the fact that even though you're based here, you work with people across the country and internationally, correct?
Correct. About 20 to 30% of my clients I've never met in person. Nor
right.
will I until they come to America, perhaps, to meet me. But yes, we're able, fortunately, because of this type of work, we're able to do much of it over the internet and via mail, and it's very easy, very seamless. It's wonderful.
That's fantastic.
That's
It
what
really
people
is.
want to hear because people get it's quite daunting when you go, oh, where do I even start, trying to do this process.
And finding somebody usually comes through recommendation because
Yes.
Apart from a lot, I mean, I think no matter what we're getting done services wise, you always want a recommendation. But in this one, because it is so important,
Yeah.
no matter what stage you're at, you really want to know that it's somebody that you're like, okay, I feel like I've got a point of reference here. I'm going to trust this person.
I mean, when I look back, I did mine by myself. When
Did you?
And
I
you
did.
sweated the entire way,
I
sure.
did because you don't,
Yeah.
you think you're just following the steps, but you don't know all the steps. But
Right.
we did it ourselves.
Amazing.
Yeah. I won't do it
Wow.
again.
They
but
used to be
I won't do
they
it
were a
again.
lot more forgiving back then too. Now,
How old do you think I am?
well, only a couple. I was going with
Yes.
39. But
That's when you just came over on steerage. And you remember seeing the Statue of Liberty as you arrived through the porthole.
No, recently they recently came out with a rule that if you mess up, they can deny the entire application, take your money, and you have to start all over again.
What are some of the things that people do to mess up? So, and aren't aware that
Not get a lawyer. No.
Right.
Yes. Rule number one.
Well, in all seriousness, the first thing a lot of people do is they get notary publics or notariuses rather than lawyers, people who actually put themselves out to be lawyers, charge like lawyers, and then mess everything up.
Oh my gosh.
So you get a lot of that, more so in the Hispanic community than the British community.
And they think probably think it's a shortcut, it's a little bit cheaper, but
Exactly.
it actually is not. It doesn't have the
Exactly.
weight
Pay
of
for what
having
you
a
get.
lawyer.
Unfortunately, there's an expression a friend of my family always says, there's nothing more expensive than a cheap lawyer.
Right, because you have to find another one.
Exactly. And,
And there's nothing more cheap than an expensive lawyer, right? Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
I'm halfway in
No,
between the two, but yeah. No, a lot of people, they just don't follow the rules. Right?
Yeah.
They don't read it. They don't read it carefully. And they unfortunately go to the websites that have the misinformation on it.
Yeah.
And that can completely mess you up, especially if you're already out of status. So if you've come to America already and you've overstayed,
Oh my God.
depending how long you've stayed, you could be barred for 10 years from returning
And
to
it
the
still
US.
is a tricky process. If you are, I mean, taking that little kind of summary list at the top there, you know, if you are in the UK and you're thinking, okay, I want to be out of the country at this point, and I want to go to the US. I mean, it still is. It's a tough. You've got to meet some pretty tough criteria to find your
So
your
you
niche,
don't.
depending on what you do.
Yeah, say you're not getting married to an American citizen. How difficult is it? Someone just wants to move to the States.
Very.
That's what I
It
figured.
is very difficult.
Yeah.
You need to generally have a very high education, at least university degree, if you're going work related.
How did we get here then?
You need to find yourself a nice American lady.
A lot
Well,
of
I've already
experience.
got mine.
Well, oh, that's right. Yeah,
You
sorry.
know, I've got my green card and we're going for citizenship. I'm fine. Thank you. Good Lord.
It'd have been easier years ago, though, if you'd have done that.
It would.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm sure they can see through that when people try and do their
The scam marriages.
yes, and they do ask you about that. You know,
Oh, yeah.
they ask you a lot of questions. They know how to figure it out, don't they? You know.
They've seen it all. Right?
Yeah.
So all the things that you think are so special and so conniving and so
Right.
deceitful,
Right.
they've seen it over and over again, and they will catch you. And
But even if you got a chunk of change, what's the one where you can put in
EB5.
Like, an EB5 is that's like
$1
half
million.
$1 million. Oh, $1 million.
well, it depends which part of the country you're living in. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's up to $1 million, and actually it's just increased more than that.
Does it have to be in a business or in property or?
So it depends. There are two ways of doing it. Either you invest in someone else's business. So, for instance, one of the hotels here, or a few of the hotels here on the Strip, received EB5 money in order to build themselves up, and so that the investors would be able to get green cards.
That's
Or
interesting.
you could start your own company, but then you need to employ 10 full-time employees, and you need to get EB5 certified, and you're looking at about $100,000 in legal fees.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Just to get that. And there are always cheaper ways and easier ways of doing it.
right.
Gosh,
right.
that is
Yeah.
difficult, isn't it?
And with the new, I mean, obviously there's been a little bit of a shift, some of which make the headlines, some of which probably don't make the headlines in terms of the stipulations that are required or the changes that are made in the laws. I mean, what's the biggest thing that's more recently that's been a change in immigration law that's affecting? having an
It
effect?
isn't so much a change in the immigration law as it is they just started enforcing it. So there were laws on the books that were around, and it was, oh, okay, so you've overstayed, don't worry about it, move on. Now it's, okay, you've overstayed, you're coming with us, you're going before an immigration judge, you're going to either have to, we have to settle this, either
Yes.
one way or the other. And so, yeah, it's been very... The ICE has been a lot more active in picking people up. Places like Las Vegas, if you are out of status and you get pulled over by a police officer, if he finds that you are out of status, he will hand you over possibly to ICE
Right.
and basically just following the law rather than any dramatic changes in the law.
So what do people? So say that happens to someone.
they're out of status.
Yeah, what do
Status.
they do? I mean, do they...
Get married.
You see, we were avoiding that one, but
I
bottom
know.
line is,
Especially for Brits, because Brits generally come over on ESTAs, right?
Yes.
A visa waiver program.
Yeah.
And so as a result, you're not able to change status if you are on an ESTA. You can adjust status, which is to go from a non-immigrant to an immigrant, all right, but you cannot change status from one non-immigrant to another non-immigrant status. So if you overstay more than the 90 days, if you overstay up to 6 months, first of all, day one that you overstay, your ESTA is no longer valid.
Right.
Technically,
It's
you
done.
might be able to get back in, you might be able to sneak back in, all right, and they might wave you through, but officially your ESTA is done. So you will then need to go to the American Embassy in London and ask them for a B1, B2
Right.
visa. If you overstay more than 6 months and you leave the country, you have a 3-year bar from returning to the United States.
Oh, wow.
And if you overstay over a year, you're 10-year bar.
Wow.
So there's some serious
It's
consequences.
risky, and
It is.
people do it, don't they? And it's like, I don't know why you would put yourself through that stress of, I could get picked up any time, you know, just
Living in the shadows.
just do it the right way.
So
would
now,
be
if you
the
have
easiest
a
way.
if you have a visa and already, and you're within your
Visa or
status.
visa waiver program.
No visa. If you you know,
An actual visa.
So you've moved to that next stage. So you've
Okay.
actually somehow you've achieved your visa, whether it would be, you know, like
P1,
Mine was a
O1.
P1.
Was that exceptional talent?
Shocking, isn't it? And then you know you want to convert that into your green card. So maybe you've got an O1, an O2,
Correct.
whatever it might be. Is that still about the same process, or has that changed as well?
All those
now?
processes are about the same. They really haven't changed. There's
Stack of paper this much.
That's a thin packet. Yeah.
That's a thin
That's a thin packet. It's not easy to get your green card. I mean, it's hard enough to just get your visa. And then
That's
if
right.
you want to move on to the green
Next
card,
step.
the company, in most circumstances, the company actually has to sponsor you
Yes.
for your green card, which is sort of antithetical to their own best interest, because once they get you your green card, you can then leave that company.
That's true.
So,
That's true.
Oh,
That
so
makes
they're
sense.
not rushing to do that.
Yes.
Right.
But what a lot of people do is they have their own companies, and so they can sponsor themselves theoretically, even though they're doing it through the company.
I see.
The easiest way I find, especially for Brits, if they want to come over here and eventually get their green card, if they're currently working for a company in a managerial or executive capacity for over a year, they could transfer over to the United States to open up an office. And then after being a manager or executive in the U.S. office for over a year, they can then apply for what's known as a multinational executive green card.
Oh, that's
Ah,
I've
so
never
that's the
even heard of
intercompany
that.
transfer.
That's
right?
the L1A is the intercompany transfer, and then what's known as an EB2, or it's actually an EB1C for the multinational executive.
And it's interesting because if you are an expat, we all feel like that we have a knowledge of this topic because we obviously experienced it so personally ourselves. So we all like sitting here right now. It's like, oh, I know what he's talking about. Yes, it makes perfect sense. But you do. I feel we're all invested in it, whether we want to do it, we're doing it, we've done it. It's a minefield, but those sort of things are always useful to know.
And so a lot of people will come to me asking about the EB5, and then I'll find out that this other route is actually a lot cheaper, a lot easier, a lot higher probability of success,
Right.
and more so they don't have to invest $1 million,
Which is good.
right? Which is huge.
Now, how many? I know there are so many visas allocated per country, and then they're broken down into categories. What does Britain have?
So, unfortunately, the premise is not exactly correct. So there are no limit to U.S. visas.
Oh, okay.
For anyone in the world. If you qualify, you qualify.
I see.
There are for diversity visa lottery. Okay. Which,
Oh, yeah.
and the
lottery.
UK does not have
Which
that.
we don't
know.
qualify. We
We
don't
don't
qualify.
qualify. So-
Ireland
That's
does,
so cheeky.
but not the
not the
in-
UK, unfortunately. So that's not really an option. But
Yeah.
providing you qualify, it doesn't matter where in the world you're from,
Just go through that paperwork.
go through the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, once we moved on. You've got your visa. Somehow you figured out. You've done your stack of papers. You hope that depending on where it gets processed, because isn't it one's Nebraska, one's California,
It's all over the
it's
country.
all over. Isn't there a couple of
Phoenix,
I think mine was in
Dropbox.
Nebraska.
Okay.
So great.
LIN number. your receipt numbers would be LIN.
I think that's what it was. And so, you got to, and apparently these things sometimes get processed they farm it out to people who process these things. Is that correct?
I've never heard that because this is very, very confidential information. Not that the government ever gives away confidential information, but in this circumstance, there are no private companies really working with these. They're hiring a lot more immigration officers to be going through all this.
Right.
The process, especially here in Vegas, has gotten a lot faster.
Well, that's what I was going to ask about the timeline.
Unbelievable. My hat is off to them to the nth degree. They are now open for business, doing interviews at 6:15 a.m. Wow. All right. So for marriage-based immigrant visas, something that I do a lot of, the wait time went from about 1.5 years down to now about 7 to 8 months.
That's
and
really
all in the
quick.
past year, it's been incredible.
That is good, because at one point it really had extended in time as well, and just with
correct, and all that does is add anxiety to people's lives, right?
Yeah.
And it still takes a long time,
Right. Right. And you're waiting and you're sort of in that limbo that is never of comfort.
People always ask those questions. I will say, how long will it take? I got my so-and-so. I've got my interview. How long will that be? It's like, and all the answers are completely different.
And because you don't know, because it could change at any time.
Yeah.
So I always add a couple of months to my clients because just based out of experience, if I say 6 months, 6 months, one day I'm getting the phone call. Yeah. We haven't gotten it yet. What's going on? What's going on? What do you do wrong? It's like,
and if it comes early, then it's a bonus, isn't it?
I look like a genius.
That's right. That's right.
There's nothing wrong in that.
So now you're a green card holder, and you're thinking, what is it? Nearly 5 years.
Depends. If it's through marriage to a U.S. citizen, it's 3 years
to get citizenship.
To apply for citizenship. Yeah. And actually, you apply 3 months before the 3 years, so 2 years 9 months. And for every other category, it's 5 years, and again 3 months early, 4 years 9 months.
Right.
So 3 months is the earliest you can.
3 months prior to the 5 years is
when
the
you
earliest you can apply.
And the application process for that is a little bit more. Less stressful than the green card?
A lot less stressful because at least if you are talking with someone knowledgeable, they'll be able to tell you straight off the bat whether or not you'll pass, whether or not you qualify, right? So the big questions as far as citizenship are, number one, have you been arrested in the past 5 years? Okay? If you've been arrested and not convicted, not the end of the world, but if you have a conviction, even for something like a DUI, you're going to have to wait until 5 years from when you were convicted, or not convicted, or when it happened.
I didn't know
that.
Because this is where I'm at, by the way. I'm at like 4 and a change
I thought you
years.
meant a DUI.
No.
Of course
I have not been arrested or have not yet in the NSX.
Your only crime is eating too many hobnobs.
Yeah, I should probably qualify that. I'm at that point where I can nearly qualify for citizenship. So now I'm really listening.
So basic questions. In the past 5 years, have you been in the United States for 2.5 of those 5 years? Okay, physically present. Have any of those trips outside of the UK been more than 6 months? If they have
outside of the US,
outside of the US, I'm sorry, my head is just so in the decorum. And then any arrests? Those have you been paying taxes every year? Are you up to date with your taxes? And if you've qualified for all those, then it shouldn't be a problem.
Right.
What'll happen is we'll file for you. About 2 weeks later, you'll receive a receipt notice. About a week after that, you'll receive a notice for you to go give your fingerprints. Photograph.
Right.
All right. And when you go do that, they'll give you a book with the 100 questions that you're going to need to learn.
Yes.
Okay. They'll give you all the answers as well.
Yes, they do.
And then at the exam, during the interview, they will ask you up to 10 questions and you have to get 6 of them correct.
That's the truth.
It takes a D to be an American.
Personally, I think, and I told the guy when I went for my test, because I learned it all. And I actually like history, so a lot of it I already do, because there's some history in there. And I was nervous, I had no idea it was going to be easy. It's going to be 10 questions. You need to get 6 right. If you don't know the answer, go to the next question. And after that happened, and then I think I wrote my name, which was the writing test or whatever it was. I said to him, I don't think that's hard enough. I'm sorry. I think people really need to earn being a citizen. I think it needs to be a proper test. I do.
Well, hopefully they didn't listen to you. So that
Well,
doesn't
no,
help
actually
me
they
whatsoever.
did. They're changing the test. They're
Are they?
making the exam more difficult.
When?
They should.
They're talking about it soon, in
Because
the
you
next
need a
month or
full
so.
understanding.
In the next month or so. Great.
Sorry, Ian.
Just for you, Ian. And Ian, you should also probably file before March if you can, because that's when all the fees are going up.
Yes, I was just
So-
reading
But can
that.
you? But I'm not. I need to check exactly when my.
I'll have a look at your green card
Yeah,
later,
yeah,
which of
but
course you have on you at all times as you are legally
supposed
required.
to?
Yeah,
That's
technically you are.
dangerous, though.
It is. So
I
my
wouldn't want that.
recommendation:
I lose stuff all the time. That's the last thing I want to lose.
make sure you have a copy of it at home or on your
Well,
phone.
I
Yeah.
do. I have that on.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But I do think it needs to be more difficult so people, because like you say, you can learn it parrot fashion. I was given a DVD and a CD, and I just used to listen to it in the car. And some of them are just one-word answers, which I think people need a full understanding of the three branches of government and why do we have three branches of government.
Well,
Do you know what I mean? So you know how it operates.
You're used to
here.
British education too, where I had never seen a multiple choice exam until I'd come to America, right?
Driving test. I couldn't believe that.
Oh my
Oh, yeah.
gosh.
That
It
was
was
great.
multiple choice.
I did my driving test in Florida in a parking lot with the traffic cones. And Florida's known to be flat. And so when it got to the point where the driving instructor said, "So imagine you're on a hill," because you had to do the hill start.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "So you mean just go?" No, you're on a hill. Okay.
I know. I thought I'd failed. I did
Drive.
Drive.
I did two right turns, two left turns, and he went, "Okay, let's pull in." I thought, how have I failed this? And I went, "What do I do now?" He went, "Go get your license." And I was stunned.
It is a
I'm like,
bit.
that was it.
yeah,
And I
is
know
a
it's
bit.
different from state to state, but it's not like a British test where you're just a wreck for 2 hours driving around.
No, I
Exactly.
failed my British test because I didn't look in the mirrors enough
Yeah.
time per minute.
That's right.
I was just like,
You've got to
what?
keep looking in the mirror.
What? Really? That's a thing?
It's a thing. It's a
After
thing.
having my American Florida driver's license for 30 years, they wouldn't let me. Ridiculous.
No, yeah. When I got my green card, I went through the whole medical thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's the same now as it was then. It was horrendous when I went through it. I'm going to give you a list. I was shuffling around in a medical gown for a whole day.
Really?
At Public Health, no less, which was horrible. This is when I lived in Nashville, and I had to have mental evaluations, STD tests, AIDS. I had to have internal examinations. I had to have my teeth checked, my eyes. They whacked me on the head with a tuning fork for my hearing. That is no joke.
It's
honest.
not like that anymore,
It
thank
was
God.
horrendous. And do you know when I came out? I said to Jim, "I need a Cadbury's cream egg." I did.
Oh my god.
It was traumatizing. I mean, all I did was shuffle
You
from
sure
room.
they actually did that to other people? Or
Yeah,
they were like,
exactly.
"Here, she looks
Oh,
like a character.
and-
Let's do all the weird tests on
And
her."
then
and
that's when
tell her
the
it's real."
TB test, and actually that's when I found out I'd been exposed to TB because I worked on cruise ships.
Well, you also had BCG probably when you were younger.
What's
the
BC?
the
The- the
BCG
injection
injection into
thing.
your arm.
Yeah.
I'm asking my sister, she's going, yes.
Yeah, we all had BCG.
At school you
so
had
we're
it.
always going to test positive for TB because for the rest of your life.
You see, loads of people on my...
Do they do that still?
BCG, I don't think so anymore.
A lot of people,
Oh,
lots of
great.
people now worked on the cruise
Like
ships
us.
were exposed to TB. So I had to be on preventative treatment so it did not develop.
Oh, you didn't need it because you had the BCG.
There you go, that's it. You see, I can't have that test again either because
Right.
they'll kill me.
But you didn't need it in the first place because you'd had a BCG.
I mean, it came up big. Of course it
Right.
did. It was
And it will
terrible.
all the time.
It was
Yeah.
really traumatic and upsetting that I had to have all of that done. And then I liked it when they asked me, they literally asked me, "Do you intend to partake in acts of espionage against the United States?" I'm
Oh, yeah.
This cannot be a real question,
Yeah.
really.
My favorite two questions. Number one is, have you ever committed a crime for which you were not arrested?
That's brilliant.
That's awesome.
It is. And then
Now you mention it.
You know, if that was me, I would actually tell the truth too, because I'd be too scared not to tell the truth.
are you a terrorist?
Yes, that's
that
another one.
question.
Yeah,
Are you a terrorist?
Yeah.
And apparently, talking to the officers, someone actually said yes. They had
just
someone
a
say
joke.
Yes. Exactly.
So crazy. So what is the medical test now? What do they have to have done?
So you go in, you see a doctor for about 30 minutes. They go in, they take some blood work, make sure your STDs are
Yeah.
all in order. And you come back 3 days later, pick it up, and you just send it in. And it's
You really got.
I went through the mill.
Literally,
I was,
the rough end of the stick.
I was crying when we came out. 'Cause
And
one, I
especially-
don't like to go to the doctors anyway. So
If you already have all your vaccinations from England, you don't have to get those done again. You just have to bring evidence of them. So
Wow.
nice and easy.
see, that's good news. That's good news
It
for
is good
people who are
news.
going to go through it.
So the last thing I was going to mention on that list of
yes,
is
progressions.
on the progressions.
I like your
You like the way I
progressions.
did that? See, I think about this show before we turn up in the morning. On the way here in
Like
the
Kelly
car.
Osbourne.
And Kelly Osbourne, exactly. So now you're a citizen. You've done all the thing.
Correct.
And as a side point, you can still, obviously, we know you can retain a British passport.
Yes, you can.
I'm not sure, is it actually called dual citizenship, or is it just technically, no, you can keep it?
You can keep it.
It's not,
Yeah.
we always say dual citizenship, but it's,
Well, technically you are a dual citizen, but neither country, or at least the United States, it allows you to have another passport, but you
They
are
don't-
supposed to give up all allegiances to all other countries when you become an American citizen.
Yeah.
yes,
Right,
do the
but-
whole thing.
Now, one piece of advice I will give, and I think I've talked about this on the show before, when I got my citizenship, which was on SN a couple of years ago, I had a trip planned to England shortly after the ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have time to get the passport back, the American passport that I needed to apply for.
Right.
Went to England on my British passport. Wouldn't let me on the plane to come back. They had to have the consulate give me permission.
Right.
And for 10 hours on that plane, I thought something doesn't feel right because they didn't give me a piece of paper to say it was okay to travel that day. And I got to the States and I check out on the fingerprints and everything. I've been here a long time. And I was detained for 3 hours and questioned. And they got all the information. I'm a
You do
citizen.
look dodgy.
I am a bit dodgy, and it was really traumatizing. And that's another question people ask: if if I don't have my passport, can I still go somewhere with my British passport? Well, I'm going to tell you, you can't get back in. It's a bit of a nightmare.
Right.
But also, how do you travel when you've got two passports? I mean, I always go in on my British passport and I always come back on my American.
And that's the correct way to do it.
Thank you.
Right.
My husband is watching this. He argues with me about this all the time.
Whenever you enter a country of which you're a citizen, you have to enter with that country's passport.
Ooh.
Now, the bad news is, had you gone to LA, you could have gotten a US passport the same day.
So it can be as quick as that.
It can be as quick as that.
See, I didn't know.
So you can request an expedited after. Typically, they have people from the post office at the swearing-in ceremony.
No way, that's brilliant.
That will do all the passport stuff for you then and there, and it takes about 2 weeks for you to get it in the mail.
That's fantastic.
But if you have to travel before that, you book an appointment for LA, and they should have it to you same day, if not next.
That's a big question that people have. Is the whole passport
Right.
thing?
Yeah.
Do I need to get one? And one lady was insistent. She tried to argue with me, which I was not arguing back. And she said, because I'd said to someone, this was my experience not coming back on it because I didn't have the American passport. And that one was like, no, you could go anywhere on a British passport, blah, 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 blah. And I went, I'd love to agree with you, but then we'd both be wrong.
Right. So now,
So that settles that one.
it does.
Which is
That's
a big
over.
question.
if you're a citizen and you want to bring family members over,
So this is a big one.
Oh, yeah.
This is a big one.
This is a very big
and
one.
actually, this does come from a specific question, which we're not going to throw out names there because that's irrelevant.
Right.
But we did have that a couple of questions on that topic.
So it's going to depend on the family member, because there's certain family members you can actually file for while you're still a green card holder. You don't even need to wait for citizenship, such as spouses and children.
Right.
All right.
this is parents.
Okay, so
specifically.
parents, once you become an American citizen, only then can you file for your parents.
Gotcha.
And it is a seamless process. If they're out of the country, it takes about 1.5 years, depending where they are.
Yeah.
If they're in the country, you can file and they can adjust status. And it takes 8 months for them to
But
get it.
can they
that's
be here?
quick.
Now, what status could they be in the country? Could they be in the country on an ESTA?
They could be in a country in an ESTA. However, they cannot have had the intention of filing for an adjustment of status when they came into the country.
Right.
And how is that proven or disproven?
It's so if you file within the first month of arriving in the United States, it's presumed visa fraud. If it's in the second month, it's a rebuttable presumption of visa fraud, and then after the second month, there's no such presumption.
That's
it's
sort of an odd one, isn't it? Really, just wait.
Yes, that's
Okay.
exactly it. And even if the parents have overstayed, so for a lot of people, they came with their parents, they've overstayed 30 years, whatever. The parents became, the child became a U.S. citizen, and then they can file for the parents, even though they've been out of status for decades.
Right.
All right, 8 months, they'll have their green cards.
Right.
Right. Now, the one I do recommend are siblings, because even though it's taking about 16 years right now, depending for Brits, for their that time goes by quickly. Yeah. Unfortunately, it goes by quickly. So as soon as you become an American, if you have any family members, and especially for their kids as well, if you want them to have the opportunity to be able to live and study in the United States, and file immediately after.
Because I know when I was...
Well, your sister's still here.
Well, she
was supposed to go home last week.
She was.
And I walked in this morning, she's still here.
I know.
So, there you go.
I know. Now, my twin...
Do you plan on leaving?
See, I was taught...
Wait till the third month. There'll be no presumption.
Way back in the day when I was doing all my stuff, and I'd asked about, because I have 4 sisters and I have a twin sister, about, petitioning for my twin sister to come over, and they said, well, siblings aren't immediate family. And I went, hang on, we're in the womb together. Why? That is no more immediate family than anything. But yeah, it was a long period of time. But that's great advice. Get it started straight away. Or just give her your
American passport. No, of course, if you guys are identical.
Oh, that's true.
No, I would never say. Oh,
says the lawyer. Don't worry, nobody watches.
We're good. We're not identical. It's our teeth out. We're good.
So now, given the fact that in this particular instance it was parents are probably going to be older. Are there any kind of health constraints or limitations?
I was going to ask that too. Would that go against anyone's, application if they?
And do they have to have established insurance
something like that? Right now, the law's changing a little bit in that area, whereby you need to prove that you're not going to become a burden to the U.S. government,
to the system,
right? To the system. Typically, so as long as the children are making enough to qualify to sponsor them and show that they will be able to afford. That person, should they actually have problems, then there shouldn't be an issue.
Now, how much money do they need to have available to sponsor?
So it all depends how large your family size is. So if you're just a single person, you want to bring in your mom, one person, you need to be showing that you make $24,000 a year.
Oh, okay.
Right. If you're married, $28,000. If you're married with a kid, $33,000, and then pretty much add $5,000
as you keep going,
as your family gets larger, on people that you're responsible for.
That's going to be expensive for my family. There's loads of us. Now, I do have a question from a friend of mine who's called Sam, and this was her question. She said,
"Morning, Nikki. By the way, just my Nikki Dewhurst is now watching.
Oh, how funny!
You think you're going to get away with me not noticing you're watching? I know you are. And we were talking about your dad at the beginning of the show.
Saw your dad last night in the show,
which he went to see Mr. Air. So you might just have to come on and bring your dad with you." Sorry about that, bit of a segue thing. But you were talking about Mr. Darren. We were talking about Brian Dewhurst. He's watching. He gets called out.
Yeah, he's piking.
He is.
So what she said is, I heard from them regarding my citizenship and going from an interview /test March 2nd. The letter said my citizenship will be complete by October this year, but my green card expires in September this year. Do I need to keep that green card valid or extend it another month, or is it okay to let the green card expire prior to the citizenship test?
Well, yes, let it expire.
Okay.
So here's something that generally people don't understand. A green card is just proof that you're a legal permanent resident. Once you become a legal permanent resident, you're always a legal permanent resident, unless one of 3 things happens.
Okay.
Number 1, you relinquish it voluntarily, and you have to sign a piece of paper in order to do that. Number 2, an immigration judge takes it away from you after immigration proceedings. Number 3, you die. So
right, that's the end of that.
The fact that she sent that is pretty good for number 3. If she's not in immigration proceedings, it doesn't sound like it. She hasn't relinquished it.
She's a good girl.
Don't worry about it at all. All you have to do, typically after you have your interview, about a month later to 2 months later, you'll get a notice of your swearing in ceremony, which will be about a month to 6 weeks after that. So she should be absolutely fine either way, but worst case scenario, let's say it's coming to the end of the green card. She needs to travel. She can always schedule something with USCIS. It's called an info pass, where they will put a stamp in her passport saying basically works the exact same as a green card, extending her green card for an extra 6 months to a year while
see.
this is processing.
Oh, that'll make her feel so much better because
hope
lots
so.
of people have that question.
Yes.
Do I get another one? Do I just let it
don't
run
waste
out?
your money. If you're filing for citizenship and your green card expires, all you have to do is contact USCIS, give them your receipt number for your N400 or citizenship application, and then they will schedule you to come into a local USCIS office with your valid passport. They'll stamp the passport, and that works exactly the same as an extended green card.
Now, Sandy Curtis had a point speaking to that somehow. It says a friend has an old green card, and when he comes back to the States, they give him a hard time to get the new one. I thought green cards didn't expire. I mean, they do have a time on it, but I mean,
so there was a period that they actually didn't have an expiration date on them.
Okay.
All right, but technically you are still supposed to renew those.
10 years, isn't it?
Yes, it's every 10 years. Customs and Border Patrol cannot stop you from re-entering the country with that green card.
Okay.
Now, what might happen is what might be difficult for you is to even get onto a plane, all right, because the airline might prevent you from flying into the U.S. because you don't have what they consider to be a valid green card.
And that's going to be judgment of the person at the check-in desk and not a legal, like an official.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, but technically, you're a legal permanent resident no matter what. So they're not going to stop you from being able to enter the country. They can't stop you from entering the country.
I see.
Right? So if they try to do that, you do not sign anything. You do not say you relinquish your green card. You simply say, put me into removal proceedings if you want to.
Okay.
All right. And they will not do that. They can't. They can't.
Good to know. And then Mike Robson actually responded to that and said that he got his in 1983 and had many issues in later years with airport officials. And said his one didn't have an expiration date, but believes they do now. So same sort of thing. You know,
same concept. If you just want to make life easier at the airport, because here's the reality is Customs and Border Patrol can make your life miserable if they want to, as they did with yours. Right? Going into secondary is not fun.
It was horrendous. And they fined the airlines $10,000 for letting me on the plane. I thought they were going to fine me. And I went, oh! And they said, no, which airlines did you come in on? I told them they should never have let you on that plane. And they said, we're fining them $10,000.
Oh, wow.
They did. Oh, it was horrible.
But yeah, simply file an I-90 for a new green card. Again, do that before March if you want a new green card. It's $680, pretty self-explanatory, and you'll get a new green card in the mail, and you won't have the problem anymore at Customs and Border.
Yeah. This information has been so helpful.
It really has, and we appreciate everybody kind of chiming in on the feed as well, and just I mean it's something, as I say, we all have an understanding of, but there's still so much in between it, which is why unless you want to apply for it yourself and go through all that stress, I would never want to do that.
I'm a bit of a do-it-yourselfer, I will say that.
I would never want to do that, and that's why I will be coming down to your office
That's right.
and hopefully applying before March if I can.
That's right.
But so yes, it's greencardadvice.com.
Yes.
Is the website.
Heyman Law Group.
The Heyman Law Group. Yep. Based here in Las Vegas, but you can do
anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world.
We help you anywhere in the world. About 20-30% of my clients I'll never meet in person.
Wow.
Right.
Now, do you help people who are trying to go back to, say, Britain with their American spouses?
If they need to, yeah. We're able to do all immigration all around the world.
Yeah, because they changed some of that stuff, didn't they? Because there were a lot of couples here with their American spouses, their own children have grown up, they've left, they want to go back to England, and then this whole thing changed. So you got to have, I think it was something like £100,000 in the bank, and you couldn't go and get a job. You had to have a job to go to for this. I mean, it was just a little bit, a bit much, you know.
It's easier to come to America.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a lot of money you had to have in the
least
bank.
legally, right?
But a lot of people are quite upset about that because they said, all our grown children are gone and we want to go back to England, and I'm having a living nightmare trying to get back because we don't have that kind of money, or they're too old to work, you know, they want to work, they're retired. So that's
and cheaper education. Right. So I have a 3-year-old daughter, and so I've spent $500,000 in American education for university and graduate, or $50,000 if I send her back to the UK.
Send her back.
And that.
Save the money.
And then there's health insurance, but that's a whole other topic.
Well, you have to also you also can't jump on the NHS either when you go back for a certain period of time.
Yeah, if
isn't
you've
it?
actually lived outside of the country for a certain amount of years, you can't.
Well, you have to pay now.
You do have to pay. We covered this.
We
didn't
did.
a few weeks
We do
ago.
have to pay, but I do. I forgot what the percentage was of the actual cost, which is still
150% of the cost of whatever the procedure is.
How can it be 150?
Yeah, but it's not the 150 by American standards.
Well, I know that much.
So,
it
like,
would never be as
they
much.
were saying a hip replacement's like £7,000.
Right.
Not here, it wouldn't be.
No, it
So,
wouldn't.
but yes, there is a threshold in which if you've lived outside of the country, I think it's like 15 years or something that you can't.
You've got to start paying up.
Yeah,
you've
you
got to
actually-
pony up,
That's
as
right.
you say.
That's right.
It is complicated, though, isn't it? Based on your own situation.
Right.
Whether it's just for yourself, whether it's just for work, whether it's for family, with a spouse. I mean, there's a lot to
That's the
consider.
key. And when you are choosing whether it be a lawyer or whomever, make sure that they do is bespoke to you, right?
Yes.
That's what's so important because people generalize. They think, oh, it applies in one situation, therefore it applies to all situations. That's just not the case.
Right. Do you know what we'll be doing? Like I do with Craig, our pension guy. When people start asking about British pensions, I'm always tagging Craig.
Oh,
we'll
yeah.
be tagging you when people have these crazy questions. You know.
Happy to help.
Absolutely. And if
Happy
you've
to
got
help.
any questions for Darren, we'll make sure that the link to the Heyman Law Group and the website is on the feed. Actually, we can probably put that right on this post. And then we'll make sure we put a link on the website at spillthetealive.com as well. And so people can be able to contact you, and perhaps you'll be able to be open to coming back and doing a little update.
I think he needs a moniker because we have our pension guy, we've got BFF.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to come up with
The
something.
green card guy.
The green card guy.
Yeah. I think it'll work. It'll be perfect. But we really appreciate you taking
It's
the
been
time. to do
fantastic.
this.
We've
Thank
talked
you,
about it for
guys.
so long, and I think a lot of people will get a lot out of this particular show.
And more importantly, PG Chips have to bring back the monkeys.
They do.
I miss the monkeys.
They do. Do you know the
about
year they
them.
started doing that?
58?
Good guess. What do you think?
60.
1950. So you're pretty close.
Oh,
Yes,
I
that's
missed
when they
the
started doing that. That was their thing
Right.
for the longest time.
But then the RSPCA started getting
yeah, I'm all
involved, right?
about that. I'm
there
all
is
about
that.
the don't. Yeah,
There is that.
I'm all about don't use animals for profit and entertainment.
Except PG Tips.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, anyway, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in today. Thank you so much, Darren. We
Yeah, it's been
appreciate
great.
you being
Really
here.
great.
And
We're done. So
We're
thank
done.
you for spilling the tea with us this week, and we'll see you next week.
take care now.